Hello, everyone. My name is Jacob Fortin. I'm the host of this podcast, Doers Within Emerging Markets. And I just want to share my experience with using Anchor so far. When the pandemic started, I thought about starting a podcast, and the whole idea was to bring in some really amazing folks that are doing some great work in their respective industries within the emerging markets. And the Anchor platform really helped me get the word out there and also just make it a lot easier for me to invite the guest and just share the amazing experiences they've had and the amazing work they're doing in their respective industries within the emerging markets. Um, it's pretty fun. You don't even worry about the technical part of making a podcast. You actually just focus more on the content. And Anchor has done it really well for me. So I will highly encourage anybody who is trying to start a podcast to try to use. Just check out Anchor, and I think you won't regret it. I'm not a technical person, but if you listen to these episodes that I've been publishing so far, it seems like I know what the technical part of it, but Anchor helps you take care of the technical part, and you just focus on the content. So feel free to check it out. I highly encourage you won't regret it, and it's right there. You don't pay anything. So in times like this, I think starting a podcast and getting the word out there, irrespective of what you're doing, will be a really great experience. So thank you guys for listening to my episodes. Please check out Anchor, and you will have a great time. So cheers, guys, and see you guys next episode. Thanks. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in into Time for Emerging Markets, Towards for Within Emerging Markets. My name is Jacob. I'm the host of this podcast, and I'm really excited to have Bafsul Arnold, an incredible entrepreneur, and just someone really outstanding, and just really excited to talk to him today. Alexander Thomson-Payan, founder of Thomson Group International, based in Angola, and many other accolades that comes with his name. Alexander, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jacob.
Awesome. So getting right into it, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So as you mentioned, I'm a Babson graduate. I come from quite an international family. I have an American father and a Colombian mother, and I was actually born in Saudi Arabia. So and then I moved to the States when my father was doing business in Saudi, and then when I was about 6 years old, I moved to the States. We moved to Miami. And I went to school there until I went to Babson. And then when I was in Babson, I took my junior year off and did my summer of my sophomore year, my junior year, and the summer of my junior year in China, in Shanghai, studying Mandarin 9 hours a day and getting to learn the language and the culture. And then I went back to Babson. I graduated in 2006. And then I went down and I worked for an amazing guy called Marcelo Claure, who had founded a company called Brightstar, which today is the largest mobile phone distribution company in the world. And he has gone off to sell that company to SoftBank, now the COO of SoftBank. And had a great learning experience with him as his right hand and his chief of staff. And then my Babson entrepreneurial itch kicked in.
Yes.
And I had an opportunity to go to Angola. And I had another friend from Babson that had introduced it to me. And, we were just looking at it and seeing that it was going to be the fastest growing economy in the world. And my buddy actually wanted to go into the timber business. And I said, I don't really know anything about timber, but the one thing I know about is mobile phones. So I started our first company, which was Electrix Telecommunications, which today is one of the largest mobile phone telecommunications companies in the country. We do mobile phone distribution, airtime distribution, retail. We grew it up to 36 retail stores. And so we got very lucky with that business.
Yeah.
And then started diversifying ourselves, but focused on the Angolan market. So we opened I just said, I just had to educate myself on why there was money in Angola, which was obviously the oil and gas boom. Angola was in a very interesting place because it went from being 45 years of first independence, civil war, which ended in 2002. So it literally went from ground zero to the fastest growing economy in the world and producing 2 million barrels of oil a day. So I just said originally that I should educate myself on why it is that, just understand the oil and gas market, and socially became friends with the president of Schlumberger, the president of Chevron, all these big multinationals that were there. And that led us to start a company called ESS, which is Exceptional Service and Supply, which does a wide range of services to the oil and gas companies. And now we've spread outside of just oil and gas, and we just work with multinationals that are in the market and in these emerging markets, which are usually quite just difficult to operate in. And our whole philosophy is we will deal with all the headaches of operating locally. You focus on your core business. So we do everything from procurement to manpower to heavy machinery rental to housing to office space. We have co-working spaces to industrial bases. And yeah, that's grown into a beautiful business as well. We got very lucky with that. And then from there, we started understanding that where these big multinationals were spending most of their cash, and that a lot of it was in the housing and in, just the real estate space. And what happens with these companies, and what we were able to figure out, is that, they, even though it doesn't make financial sense, they won't go buy real estate assets, right? They want to rent. They want to be able to be flexible, especially in these emerging markets, be able to pull out if they need to, and not have these big allocations of cash and into those hard assets. So that moved us into the hotel industry on the residential side. Today, we own 3 hotels in the country. We have the highest, we have a beautiful hotel called Art House, which is I'm very proud to say, the highest rated hotel in the country on bookings.com and TripAdvisor.
Wow.
Then we actually acquired a very large hotel / industrial base. Now it's called ESS Industrial Village, which is 16 buildings, has 800 rooms. It's just a office space, clinics, warehouse space. So it's really a turnkey solution for companies trying to come into the market. And our philosophy, trying to be different from everybody else in Angola, you can't imagine. In 2014, a 2-bedroom apartment was $15,000 a month.
Wow.
And you had to pay a year up front.
Wow,
it was crazy.
That's very expensive.
Yeah, so what we did is we kind of went the opposite way. We said to our clients, whether it be for your housing, for your office space, or for your industrial space, instead of having to get a fixed long-term contract as your companies grow and contract, we just tried to be the most flexible people ever. So we said, if you want, a room for a day, great. If you want a desk for a day, great. If you want a warehouse, if you want 500 meters for a day, a month, a year, fine. And by giving our customers that flexibility and not forcing them into these contractual obligations, it actually made them feel a lot more comfortable and has allowed us to maintain with very, very high occupancy rates in all of our properties.
I just love to hear talk more and more. There's so much information. It's just so exciting. Just to take us a little bit back. So I read an article on Bloomberg News. I think this came out back in 2014 of you raising capital from your Swiss and American friends. It was a couple of 100,000. I think here it says 200,000. How was it like to convince your friends to, raise this amount of money and go into Angola to start this venture? What was the experience like, and how did you actually convince them that to probably get the return on invested capital if you went onto this venture in Angola?
That's always a tough one, isn't it? It's funny, but I think that the key to that and in everything is, you know, really just be a man of your word, you know, and be somebody that with even the smallest things, you respect your word. And when you honor your word, what happens is people start noticing and people start trusting your word, you know. And if you you know, you say, I'm going to be there at 7 o'clock. If you're there at 7 o'clock, you know, you just, every single thing you say ends up happening. What happens is people start trusting your word, you know.
That's true.
And so when you've been able to do that, and especially in these tough markets, but people trust you and you trust your word, they will follow, you know.
Definitely.
So I think that's, especially with friends and family, you know, it's you know, that's the name of the game, and that's where most entrepreneurs start, you know what I mean? And so I think it's a key factor. And once again, not just in business, in everything that we do, you know, in every aspect of our lives, if we are known as people that respect our words, that honor our word, people will trust our word.
Definitely. I mean, that's powerful. Thanks for sharing that. I think those are some of the key lessons that some of our listeners, these very basic things that we just need to take seriously, is very important for aspiring entrepreneurs. So thanks for sharing that. Can you please tell us about your experience as a board member of the US-Angola Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah.
How was that like? And how
No,
did
it's been
you?
great. It's
That's
been
it.
great. It's been great. It was an honor to be. It was an honor to be asked to be a part of it. It's you know, it's a you know, one just, it was honored because it kind of shows that the market believes that we are leaders of it. That we were the only sort of small, I guess, company that was in that, you know, because everybody else was Exxon, Halliburton, you know, like these big banks, Standard Chartered Bank, you know, and we were the, you know, we're not a small company anymore, but we were the sort of the one sort of not major multinational company in there, which allowed us to have a very different voice and a very different opinion. And yeah, it was just a great it's a great organization that really assists American, and not, you know, really, it's called the American Chamber of Commerce, but it's not as if they only allow American companies in. And then I pushed to start and become the head of the corporate social responsibility division of it.
Wow.
That's something that I, especially in emerging markets, I think it's somewhere, but you can do it everywhere, but somewhere we can have a lot of impact. And that's something that we have stuck, and me personally, a lot of our energy into. We founded an NGO called 100% for Love, in which it's, I don't know if you guys remember back when you had you had a bunch. One was the Clinton Foundation scandal. We had a bunch of these scandals of these foundations that, you know, less than 10% of the donations actually went to the causes. Everything went to salaries and overhead and trips and, you know, rents and this and that.
Yep.
And so what 100% for Love, what we decided to do is that TGI, our holding company, covers all overhead. So we pay for all salaries, all rents, all, you know, operational expenses, and 100% of donations go to the causes specifically. So when people make donations, you know, and everything is 100% transparent, and you know, people make a donation today, the next day they will see receipts of what that donation was done, and the next day they'll see pictures of it being given out to kids or whatever of the different things that we have. And that was interesting because it also, you know, trying to do the sort of the giving thing, it was a huge lesson to me and to our team about, one, transparency, you know, really just being open with your investors or your donors or your clients, and how important communication is, and just really sharing with them what is going on. And the other beautiful thing about that was that when I started noticing that we were doing things that weren't just for us, you know, that it wasn't in our interest, but it was in our interest as a collective whole, you know, people see when you're doing that, you know, people feel it. and we were able to do amazing things. You know, we've adopted the beaches of Luanda, which before was, you know, they used to look like nobody would use them. It was just full of trash, you know. And we just started, we started literally just doing beach cleanup campaigns in which, you know, I was thinking about, I was like, man, I grew up in the richest country in the world, in the US, and in a nice neighborhood. And since I was 7 years old, we would go out as a community and clean the beaches, you know. And now why that I live in one of the poorest countries in the world are we expecting the government to do it for us? And so I just, you know, put it out there to all our clients and on social media saying that we would start this. Hundreds of people showed up, a bunch of companies came in and gave donations. And today it's amazing. We still do it on the first Saturday of every month, and the beaches are pristine. You know, people have gone, set up, you know, umbrellas, volleyball nets, set up businesses. And now we go and clean, and there's not that much trash because now the people see how beautiful it is and they don't want to leave it, you know, like that. So it's, and it's just a great feeling to see and lesson to learn that when you're doing something that is not just, you know, and I think that goes into business as well, right? Don't be looking for businesses that is just what profit am I going to make? Instead, make your intention, how am I going to add to society? How am I going to add to this world? And I think especially in emerging markets, those of us who have been blessed to be educated or grow up in non-emerging markets have a lot that we can bring to the table and a lot that we could add to society and really help these emerging markets emerge.
Exactly. That's so powerful. I mean, personal responsibility, personal accountability, corporate social responsibility. I mean, those are some of the ethos that have been taught in business school, but you actually lived the experience, and I can see through this conversation that you're actually a role model for people like us to look up to. And I think a lot of people be inspired by that. I'm just showering you with praises. How is it
too much? Don't do that.